sanibonani babukeli, and welcome to this week's exciting edition of your favorite program. Yilungelo, Lakho, it's your right. Uyazi ke, we're coming to you live here kumahamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure, ku SABC Lihaye na ku SABC Plus. Yes, mbukeli, we gave you options. We are currently simulcasting on all these three platforms. Uhleli nomanjali, unomajali, uZikhali uShongolo lomsabo kulibamba, uAlisha uNhlanhla. Those are all my names mbukeli. Uyazi nje ukuthi inkantolo zamacala amancane phecelezi lama small claims court kulapho phela ungavikela amalungelo akho ngendlela engasoze futhi ikudabule ephaketheni. Asingene shiqe edabeni lethu namhlanje mbukeli, sizwe kahle ukuthi kahle kahle le inkantolo zisebenza kanjani. Yebo mbukeli, uke ubezwe nje abantu uma beklasana kuthiwe hey sohlangana enkantolo yamacala. Yes mbukeli, see you in court is often a phrase that we throw around very easily, but most South Africans do not actually realize that the small claims court could be the court that they're actually talking about. It is fast, it is low cost, and also designed for ordinary citizens. But many still do not understand how these accessible courts actually function. I guess izwe ke producer yethu uTavoisile Mdoda ukuthi zisebenza kanjani lezi inkantolo zamacala amancane.
Umbono oyikekayo wenhlekele phakathi kwesigadla nesithuthi esigcwele qhunga ngabantu wayengasina njani ongaphakathi kwimoto ebotyozwe okwesonga esishushu. Umqhubi wesithuthi uthi akazazi kuba waphuncuka kanjani emlonyeni wokufa. Ngethamsanqa nguye lo gogo ebalisa ngoko akukhumbulayo.
Just after work ngiphuma ngeThulisa Park, there was an accident ahead of us. So ngamele ukuthi ngisloweshe imoto because there were cars ahead of us. And then sama lapho traffic be very big traffic lapho. And then whilst we are waiting, sezwa nje ngetruck boom. Mangithi ngiyachecka leyo truck leyo ifail ama brake. It was coming very fast. Yathola ukuthi silapho ku traffic asikhona ukumove, but it kept on alarming us isenzela ihuta ukuthi icela ukuthi sisuke. Unfortunately we couldn't because we were stuck with traffic, kune accident ahead of us.
Emva koko wazama ukufaka ibango le-insurance lokonakalelwa kwinkampani yesigadla. Kuna ngoku akayazi kuba kumaxa kuphi nebango lakhe. Uthi suke asiwe ngapha nangapha i-insurance yale nkampani.
This happened on the 1st of November last year. Up to date, status is a claim asikakazi ukuthi kwenzakalani. Each time masifona basitshela ukuthi sichaze the same story, what happened, what caused the accident, utracker yabe ibashayise kanjani. All the time masifona basitshela leyo nto leyo. So I guess iclaim yethu ifelele emoyeni because akekho umuntu okwaziyo ukuthi asincede.
Uzamile ukubuza ukuba athini xa i-insurance ingasiyo isicelo sokuhlawulwa komonakalo awufumeneyo. Kuthiwa icebo ukufuna igqwetha okanye uye ngqo kwinkundla yamabango aphansi nebizwa i-small claims court. Le nkundla iluncedo kakhulu xa ungenayo imali yokuqesha igqwetha likulwele. Kodwa kuninzi okufuneka ukuseyiso phambi kokuba ulwe idabi lakho lemali e-small claims court. Ukuba uyilandela imigaqo yokulwa kweli qonga ungazisola. Ingaba ke le migaqo iqulathe ntoni? Kuvoisile Mdoda, Yilungelo lakho.
Sibonga kakhulu ke ngalo mbiko esudidelwe uVuyisile Mdoda. Manje ke mbukela ukukhuluma kabanzi ngezinkantolo zamacala amancane phecelezi wona lama small claims court nendlela phela ezisebenza ngayo ukulethela ubulungiswa kunina njengomphakathi. Asamukele uButhio Maphetho ongukhomishali wama small claims court la e-studio nami. He is also an attorney. But Theo, I'm going to be talking to you first. I just want to quickly also introduce the guest here that we have for the segment, Peter Nkuna is from Osti Short-Term Insurance Ombudsman. But Peter, a very good afternoon to you. Siyabonga kakhulu baba ukuthi usenzele isikhathi this afternoon. So usulizwile udaba le lokhuzana le lasisi indaba yakhe lapha ukuthi kwenzakaleni uma ethola i-accident. Sifuna ukuzwa kunina ke njenge short-term insurance. Kwenzakalani ukuthi umuntu ayiswe from point A to point D uma esefuna ukulungiswa especially uma kunama third parties njengoba ethole esengozini yemoto?
Good afternoon, Felicia. Let's start here. Insurance ombudsman akasekho manje kukho NFO, National Financial Ombudsman, kodwa complaints can still be brought to our office and we will then deal with those disputes. That's the first point I want to make. Secondly, our office actually doesn't deal with disputes where there is a third party concerned, and if this case is what we should be going by, it will not be one of those instances that our office will be able to help with. But I think now going into the merits of what has been discussed, one of the most prominent things that becomes the reason why the NFO and the former OSTI would not be able to assist with these complaints is because they tend to be arguments about merits, whose fault it was. And as we have heard, because there were multiple parties, multiple vehicles involved, that would mean it is a little bit difficult to establish who is at fault, and that is why those matters would then rather go to courts.
Okay. All right. Mauti ama-courts, but Peter, usho wona ama-small claims court, since Nina as the ombuds, you cannot adjudicate over these types of claims.
Okay. In terms of which specific court, it will depend on how much is one's claim. So for lower amounts, if memory serves me well, I think the current limit is 25,000. I stand to be corrected. I think you've got the right people that will confirm that. And then anything beyond the limit of or the jurisdiction of the small claims court, one would have to go to the magistrate's court. And then, of course, if it is beyond the limit of the magistrate court, one can then go to the high court. And one will obviously then just get legal advice as to which appropriate court would be the one to take the matter to.
Okay, but Peter siyabonga kakhulu, and thank you so much for your contributions this afternoon. That is Ubabu Peter Nkuna there from OSTI Short-Term Insurance Ombuds. So, but Theo, welcome to the show. Asikwamukele nje officially here kwilungelo lakho. So, I think you've heard, at least we got a sense of ukuthi kwenzakaleni kusisi, and also possibly maybe she had been making the mistake to going to the wrong places ukuthi athole i-redress. Where should she have gone after indaba yakhe yenzeka ebona ukuthi akalitholi usizo?
Ngiyabonga, ngijabule kakhulu uba lana.
Welcome.
Well, there are various avenues that she can explore. The most important one, for which I'm here for, is that she can go to the small claims court. Now, in cases like hers, she goes to the small claims court only on condition that what she wants to claim for is not more than 20,000 rands. So I think that's the point of departure. We've got to start from there. And understand exactly.
You can't claim more than 20,000
You can't claim more than 20,000 rand. So that's the monetary jurisdiction of the small claims court.
Okay. All right. So, nisabenza kanjani nina? How does one actually launch a complaint in Nani? Because siyazi ukuthi you're not also particularly expensive on the consumer's pocket.
Not expensive at all. If you look at the hierarchy of the courts in the country, the small claims court is the first court that the public interacts with.
Yes.
It is located in every magistrate court, virtually every magistrate court in the country. Now, when you get to that court, you would find a clerk of the court. The clerk of the court will help you fill in some forms and understand what your claim is.
Okay.
So you fill in those forms.
As an individual, or you need legal representative?
You don't need legal representative at all.
Okay, so you can just come as an individual, bazonsiza enkantolo bakhona abantu abazokufundisa, because not everybody can understand the legal jargon.
Indeed. That's
yes,
in the main. That's the purpose of the small claims court. Gusiza abantu who don't have the money to look for an attorney. So you go to the clerk of the court, they help you fill in the form. With that form, uzosenda a letter of demand to the person that you want to claim against. And in the letter of the demand, uzobanikeza 14 days or so to comply with the demands that you have made. If at the end of the 14 days, there's no response to your demands, then you go back to the court. The clerk of the court again will help you. It's their responsibility to do that. They will help you fill in the form to issue summons out of that court. And with that summons, the defendant, as we call them, the person that you're claiming against, will be served
via a sheriff.
Either via a sheriff, but in case where you don't have money to get to a sheriff, the police will assist you to serve the person.
All right, I think asibeke lapho kwamanje Commissioner Mbukeli, we're going to be opening the lines emva kwaleli khefu usifonele nawe uma ngabe unenkinga kodwa ngicela inkinga zenu maximum yazo please inani kubu 20,000 rand. We back shortly after this, don't go anywhere. Welcome back Mbukeli kwilungelo lakho. Ingcingo zethu ke manje sezivuliwe ukuthi phela nawe ube ingxenye yendaba yethu yanamhlanje. Ungasishayela ucingo ku 0117140671, alternatively 0117140672, noma usithumele email ku consumer@sabc.co.za or usithinte lapha ya on our social media platforms. Ngihleli la no Commissioner Theo Maphetho, who's an attorney as well, khona lapha ya Small Claims Court. Sikhuluma ngokuthi Mbukeli lama Small Claims Court lawa asebenza kanjani, because siyazi ukuthi most yenu seniyazi ukuthi imali ongayiclaima amount, the maximum amount ongayela Small Claims Court u20,000 rand. So sifuna ukwazi kahle ukuthi uncedo lona ulithola kanjani, njengoba sizwile ke indaba kasisi ukuthi yena wesemotweni engozini yemoto kwase kuba nezinkinga uma sekumele akhokheke, kanti ke sesiyeza ukuthi nabo Bud Peter Nkuna abebe ombuds your short term insurance abasasebenzi futhi abasawathathi lama case usuya lapha ya NFO. All right, so Commissioner, let's talk about ukuthi sezwile ukuthi the maximum amount that you can claim is of course 20,000 rand, but does the claim then via the SCC put an end to a future claim or part of this claim? Let's say I come and claim for 20,000 rand kunina, but I then go to a normal court for the additional 500,000 rand. Am I still able to do that?
Yes, precisely. But so what happens at the Small Claims Court? If you have a claim and it exceeds 20,000 rand, you can abandon the rest. That's beyond 20,000 rand. You abandon it. And claim
the maximum
and claim the maximum from the Small Claims Court. So you have two choices to make. So you can do that, go through the route of the Small Claims Court. And I've already said that it's an efficient process. You don't need a lawyer because lawyers can be very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, very, very expensive. So you can do that, or you can go straight to a normal court. Let's call it a normal court, a magistrate court, where you would be assisted by umeli to claim for whatever you want to claim
amount.
For. Yes.
Okay. So it can't be ukuthi ngifike ngithi kulo 200, let's say 520,000. It damage yenzeke kwimoto yami. The person is willing or ngiyamazi ngithola ama details wakhe. For example, let's say it was a car accident, insurance it's ayikhokhi. So we have a gentleman's agreement. Ngithi small claims ngicela lo 20,000 and then I can't go to a normal court and still make that part of claim yami. That's what I'm trying to understand. So you can't take the matter that has already been resolved in the Small Claims Court to a normal court, even if it's for another amount.
No. If it's another amount,
but for the same case.
For the same case?
Yes, for the same case.
I see. No. If it's for the same case, then you can't.
Okay,
You've got to
so
decide.
You have to completely abandon lo 500,000 and settle for 20,000 rand. Okay, so asikhulume ngokuthi who then can be sued by a Small Claims Court? Do you also issue ama legal suits as the Small Claims Court?
Yes, remember the Small Claims Court.
It functions as a normal court.
It functions as a normal court.
Has the same powers as well.
Subject to that provision that I mentioned, that it's got to be the limit of 20,000 rand. Who can we issue summons against? Virtually every person, except if there is a case against the state.
Okay.
You can't go to the small claims court.
Oh,
but
okay.
virtually every entity, if it's a company, you can issue summons against a company. If it's a person like Umuntu, like you and me, you can still issue summons against them.
And when would a small claims court have to issue summons? I know that the Skuluma Commissioner Ngoguti, in the event that ngifikile a small claims court ngagcwalisa imininingwane yami sahamba sayosave, well, not serve umuntu, but there is a demand letter that was issued on my behalf by the small claims court, but the person was not compliant, the defendant was not compliant. Is that when you go and issue ama summons nihamba nobani futhi?
Yes, kunjalo. Remember, you can issue a letter of demand and the other person can comply.
Yes.
If you are patala, then there is no need
for summons
to proceed.
Oh, okay. So you do issue out a summons, but only in a case whereby umuntu was not compliant.
If umuntu does not comply with the demand in the letter of demand, then you have the prerogative as the plaintiff, as a claimant, to issue the summons from the small claims court.
And then in terms of our time frames, we spoke a little bit earlier on, Uguti. How do you what is the timeline of a resolution of any matter, plus minus? Is it 14 days? I know you said something about 14 days, or is it according to the person that is coming to claim, or Uguti, who stipulates that by this time I need to have my money on this day, or the court decides? How does it work?
Excellent question. Remember, I said the process is very efficient. So from the inception of the letter of demand, you give the person 14 days or so. They don't respond. You go to the small claims court again. You issue ama summon. They don't respond. The court will allocate a date. So, depending on the backlogs of the various courts, it could be anything between some weeks and a few months.
Oh, okay.
It does not take as long as the cases that you have seen in the various other courts. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, that's quite interesting. But let's talk about the type of people that you service there, Commissioner. Who is usually the normal client that has access to Ilokhuzane Small Claims Court? And what are some of the frequently asked questions when they actually do come to try bazobeka ma claims wabo?
Yazi, any member of the public has a right to go to the small claims court.
Okay, on any matter, because that's also maybe very important. Uguti, what is your jurisdiction on what matters do you adjudicate over in terms of Ilokhuzane? Because I'm sure abantu abaningi bezwa mesikhuluma nge-amount ukuthi you can claim for 20,000. Bacabanga ukuthi mhlambe sikhulumela nje mhlambe if there was somebody ongakhokhelanga imali kuphela, whereas sinomzekelo omuhle namhlanje because we're talking about a person who was involved in a car accident.
Exactly. The car accident example in the insert is a perfect example. That person can come to the small claims court. The only exclusions are when you are suing against the state.
Okay.
In the case of marriages, you can't go to the small claims court. You must go to the divorce court.
Okay.
And if you are a company, you can't institute a claim. So those are the only exclusions.
Okay.
But any other issue that you can think of, let's say it's a dispute between friends, I've loaned you some money, and now you don't want to pay back, a small claims court in Angsiza. Virtually everything that you can think of. I'm involved in an accident, a fender bender, the person is supposed to pay me, he doesn't want to pay me. I can still go to the small claims court.
Provided my claim does not exceed 20,000 rand.
That's a key point.
And what type of proof do you need, especially in the case Yama accidents, when a commissioner, because I think that's another point, a valid point that Upitankuna actually mentioned, Uguti. It becomes very difficult in this instance because if there's multi-parties, when you have to show responsibility to someone. So if you can't determine a responsibility to an individual, how do you then adjudicate that as the court? How would you decide upon that matter?
Yazi process yakhona ilula kakhulu. The commissioners are trained to look into those cases but they look at those cases without applying the strict rules of evidence.
Okay.
Yangtola. So
yes.
if the person has some kind of evidence, even video evidence, for instance,
okay,
you can come to the small claims court. The commissioner would be able to assist you.
Can you adjudicate over verbal agreements? Like you said now, ukuthi umngani ungiboleke u-20,000 akasafuna ukukhokha, and it was a verbal agreement.
Yes.
Okay,
And
but how do I prove that?
It may be a bit difficult to prove because we advise members of the public to make sure that agreements are put in writing.
Hold that thought, because I actually want us to continue with ilokuzana ivumelwano bantu bakithi aniyekeni lento yokuthi niqhawulane, because that's where you lose a lot of money and you can't prove anything mase kumele uye enkantolo. We're going to be back shortly after this break. Remember, ungasfonela la studio 0117140671, alternatively 0117140672. We're back shortly after this. Welcome back, Mbogele. Remember, our participation lines are wide open as Waningtini. So you can take part Ushele Utingo on 0117140671. Alternatively, 0117140672. You can send us your thoughts to consumer@sabc.co.za. Noma futhi uxhumane nathi lapha. We are young people. Sinama social media platforms. So ungasithinta ko Facebook, usithinta ko X, usithinta ko Instagram. That's where we are. My guest today is Commissioner Theo Mapeto from the Small Claims Court, and he is also an attorney. Mbugeli uyasichazisela-ke namhlanje ukuthi asebenza kanjani lama court inkantolo lezi ezincane ekuthiwa ungaya uyoclaima uyobeka iclaim yakho kodwa kungabi yinto ezo-exceeda noma ezodlula inani lika 20,000 rand. Should we try the lines? Ziggy, are you on the line? Good afternoon.
Yes.
Kunjani baba?
Ngiyaphila unjani sister?
Ngiyaphila Putziko. Usifonela ukuphi nendawo ungasibuza futhi nombuzo wakho sikuncede.
Mina ngifona ngiyi-Rustenburg.
Okay baba. Singakusiza kanjani?
Ya ngize ngayenza leza kuclaim yabona ethola ukuthi lo muntu lo bethi ngiclaim 20,000 yabona. Saye court. Mase sifike court ba decide ukuthi lo muntu kumele angibhadele yabona. Ya mama bamele ukuthi lo muntu angibhadala ngabhadala yabo. Ngamisa ku bathini usheriff.
Okay.
Ngafika ku street ngabhadala le mali bathi ngibhadale ukuthi kunento bazishiwe yabona ukuthi bozithatha.
Okay.
So manje lapha bebayile like yesterday yabona.
Yeah, bathini?
So lo mlungu lo angafuni ukuthi bathathe izinto uthi mina babangitshela labantu labase-sheriff bathi babafika laphaya lo mlungu babizela amagcwetha yabo angafuni ukubhadala imali sanyazi ukuthi uma kunje ngiyenze kanjani.
Awusichazele kodwa Putziki ukuthi le mali le ukolota kanjani yona lo mlungu?
Wazi lento ngoba bengibona ukuthi izoba long story mara kunankinga ngizochaza le.
Wenza kafushane baba, kwenzakaleni?
Ya besishayisane no ikhampani yona ikhampani le ikhona le edrobheni yabona.
Okay.
So lo muntu bengishayisana naye bahamba ngemoto.
Unfortunately, we lost that line, and ngathi uBudziki usemsebenzini nje njengoba esifonela kodwa siyeza ukuthi indaba yakhe ngathi washayisana nomuntu. So Commissioner, a very similar issue in relation to what we're talking about, as well as a case study yethu, which is a car accident, which is what I'm trying to get from istory sika lokhuzana sika Ziggy. Uthi ke uZiggy nihambile, he went through the process, even went there with sheriff, but now the person or the defendant uvanathi amisa ama-sheriff abalokhuza abakhulumise nama-lawyers. What happens in that situation?
Maungamlalela kahle. The Small Claims Court issued a ruling.
Yes.
In
his favor.
In the viewer's favor.
Yes.
Inkinga is the sheriff process because once there is a ruling and there's a judgment and the person does not want to comply, you go to the sheriff and the sheriff can execute against the other person's property.
The defendant, yes.
The defendant's
yes.
property. So ungathi mangilalele kahle ungathi the problem relates to the sheriff.
To the sheriff.
The small claims court has done its job.
It's done
if
its
you
job.
think about
but
it.
What could be the problem with in regards to Ilokhuzana sheriff? Because shouldn't the sheriff be appointed by the small claims court on his behalf, Commissioner?
No. The sheriff is an independent institution from the court.
Okay.
Right?
Oh,
he gets documents from the various parties and has to comply with those instructions.
Okay.
I think the viewer can go to the Board of Sheriffs. The Board of Sheriffs is a regulatory body for all the sheriffs. If the sheriff does not want to accept instructions or for some reason is not executing the instructions of the party because he's got a judgment in his favor.
Yes, he does. But he says the defendant sends his lawyers, he sets his lawyers upon him every time the sheriff arrives there.
No, there is a judgment. The judgment still stands.
So he can't just set his lawyers upon the sheriff. He has to comply.
He can't do that. If there's a judgment, the judgment stands.
But he's doing it, Commissioner.
That is why I'm saying the Board for Sheriffs might be in a better position to find exactly what the problem is with regard to that sheriff.
So you can't take action against the non-compliant defendant in this regard and take them to a higher court for non-compliance or for contempt of court in that regard?
No. Remember that judgment has to be executed. So you've got to go through all the final...
You have to serve the defendant.
Exactly.
So he hasn't accepted it. So in the eyes of the law, he has not agreed to comply.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so as you said, he can go and contact Amalokhuzana, the sheriffs.
He can go to the board for sheriffs, the board of sheriffs,
to
find out exactly what the problem with that particular sheriff is. Because, as I say, that sheriff has no choice but to comply with the instructions of the plaintiff to go and execute on the property of the defendant.
Are these common report backs that you get, Commissioner,
yes.
in terms of when you've sent out summons and you've had to actually rope in the police? Because you said in your instance as the small claims court, you rope in the police to actually assist the individual to go serve the defendant. Yes. So do you ever get a report back on people that just don't want to comply and take instructions from you as the court?
Yes, well, half the time it's an issue of ignorance. People don't really appreciate.
And what are the consequences to that? What are the ramifications?
The consequences are that judgment will be obtained against the person who's non-compliant.
And what happens to them?
There are two processes. One, you can execute against the judgment. Two, you can go to court. You can execute against the defendant, rather. Two, you can institute what they call a Section 65 process where the court looks into the financial affairs of that person. Why, in other words, why are you unable to pay? You've got to prove to court why are you unable to pay. The court looks into that, into the affairs of the defendant.
But why shouldn't they be compelled to come and explain why they can't pay? You can't just sit there and not explain that, well, there's an order against you and I'm just going to crumple it up because I can't pay.
It cannot be.
It can't be.
It cannot be.
So how do you hold them accountable? How do you bring them to book in this instance then, Commissioner?
The Section 65 process that I'm talking about, the court compels them to come to court. And the court says, you must pay, failing which you'll be in contempt of court. You're right about that. You will be held in contempt of court. So the court looks into the financial affairs of the defendant. And forces the defendant to pay the plaintiff.
Okay. I'm still not satisfied because what if they still don't pay, Commissioner? Then
they'll be in contempt of court.
And what happens? Like they just get a contempt of court charge or they serve what? Like yes. Is there any...
Remember, in terms of the rule of law, a person has the responsibility and the obligation to comply with the orders of court. So contempt of court is a criminal offense, by the way. So you could be charged and you can face the criminal court. You could eventually be arrested if you are in contempt of court.
Now that's the answer that I was seeking when a commissioner, because I think they don't like to comply because they think, it's a small claims court, 20,000 rand, there's nothing hectic that is going to happen to me. When ungafuna ukhokha imali ungaboshwa for contempt of court. Let's take another quick ad break. We're back shortly after that. Mbogale 011-714-0671, alternatively 011-714-0672. Ungasithumela i-WhatsApp seyikhona 060-844-9857. Alternatively, email us your thoughts to consumer@sabc.co.za. Usithinte futhi ku-Facebook nakuwo wonke ama-social media platforms wethu. Ngihleli ne-commissioner la yase-Small Claims Court. Mbukeli ngisho u-commissioner uTheo Maphetho is also an attorney. Sikhuluma ngokuthi mbukeli le nkantolo le edesigned ukuthi wena ongenayo imali enkulu uma phela bekwenzela wrong abantu, because siyazi abantu abathembeki, ungahamba uyoclaima against bona for a maximum amount in fact ya 20,000 rand. So Commissioner, we're just talking off air about drafter. In fact, I think this is where we actually need to make a distinction as to why then it's a preferred choice in Small Claims Court, because you don't need ummeli, whereas in the normal courts you will need amameli to draft incwadi. So you're saying nina need draft incwadi, but isebenza kanjani lo procedure? Please explain.
You'd recall that I say a member of the public must go to the clerk of the court.
Yes.
The clerk of the court has forms that have to be filled in. So there's not much drafting if you think about it. So you would fill in your names, your details, the names of the defendant and the address of the defendant. It's very important.
What if you don't have those details then, Commissioner?
You must know where the defendant stays.
Okay, for serving purposes as well.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I
Yes.
see. Okay, Kubeka,
Yes.
Commissioner.
So those are the details, the basic details. What are your names? Where do you stay as the plaintiff? Who do you have a claim?
Identification.
Who are you? Yes, how do you identify yourself? And what kind of a claim do you have against the other person? It's a debt, it's a loan, I rendered services to him, you know, I cleaned up the yard for him and he doesn't want to pay me. Those are typically the kind of cases that the Small Claims Court would deal with.
All right. We also spoke about present evidence in defense of your position in court. And you said it's basically the basics. If you've got videos, isn't it, Zazi? I mean, we are people, abahlale social medias, in our phones, we're always taking videos. So what would you advise specifically abantu that would want to come and lay a claim? Yini enzoidinga as part and parcel of that integral evidence, Commissioner?
Well, preferably, umfagazi has to be in writing.
Okay.
So if it's a loan between two friends, preferably there's got to be a loan agreement that is that's reduced to writing.
Okay.
In
the absence?
No. We can still help you in the absence of
a written agreement.
Of a written document. You know, there are things like WhatsApp, where the person probably admits guti ngizokubhatala next week or something to that effect.
So
that's
don't
evidence.
Delete. But
don't delete.
Commissioner, people have those disappearing messages. So what
not on a person who owes you money. You've got to keep it. You've got to keep it.
Okay. What other types of means of evidence do you require?
Like I said, videos. If there's an eyewitness, you can bring an eyewitness to court.
Okay.
But like I said, you know, in the normal courts, the strict rules of evidence are followed. You know, like in the case where you have to admit video evidence, you have to follow some rules of evidence. But in the Small Claims Court, it's a very relaxed environment, very informal environment, where the commissioner plays an inquisitorial role. Umsebenzi wakhe is to assist the parties themselves.
A mediator.
To mediate.
Yes.
So the Small Claims Commissioner will get into the arena and try to understand uti yini, where if you don't have the evidence in writing, you probably have some other kind of evidence. The commissioner will go into that. Unlike a normal court, where the court sits as an umpire and wait for the parties to fight amongst themselves and doesn't get into the arena. The distinction with the Small Claims Court is that the commissioner gets into the arena to make sure that the dispute between the parties is resolved.
But isn't this informality of the process of the Small Claims Court, isn't that a big drive towards why defendants don't often comply with Lokuzana summons or demands of the court, the Commissioner?
Well, they don't do that at their peril. As I've told you, that there are results which we can demonstrate where defendants have had the judgments taken against them, and they have had their movable properties executed upon by the sheriff.
Okay.
We have plenty of those examples.
Okay.
In fact, the Small Claims Court, because of its proximity to the public, has had excellent success because a person can just walk in.
That's how efficient it is.
And some assistance.
And while we're there, doesn't then the absence of lawyers act against any party's interest for a fair hearing? Since we have a mediatorial role that is actually adjudicated by the Commissioner in this instance of the Small Claims Court.
No, you'd recall that in that instance, there is an equality of arms,
yes,
in the sense that bayalingana labantu. The Commissioner sits as a presiding officer, and the Commissioner is able to identify cases where an injustice might occur. Let's say this person is not educated and the other one is educated. The Commissioner is trained to look into that and make sure that...
Because there are also attorneys as well. It's not like you're sitting there, you're not qualified.
Yes. Yes. Let's say in an instance where an attorney or advocate in their personal capacity goes to the Small Claims Court to claim against a friend, for instance. I mean, that can happen. The Commissioner who presides over the case will identify that the scales are uneven.
Yes, yes.
And Commissioner umele assise the weaker party in that instance, the less informed party. So we have plenty of those cases.
Okay.
Commissioners, by their training, have to ensure that justice is achieved and achievable by the parties who come to the court.
Have you ever had any instance, Commissioner, whereby ngizofika claim mhlambe for 20,000, but in the adjudication process, in the review process, when you are mediating, as you just said, Uguti, you always strive for balance there and fair practice as well. Have you ever had an instance where you've had to actually lower the amount or the award that you rule upon for your plaintiff?
Excellent question. Remember, if a party goes to court and claim against another party, it does not mean uzotola whatever he's looking for.
Yes, unless of course
exactly. You still have to prove by all forms of evidence that we mentioned. You still have to prove to the Commissioner Guti, I'm entitled to that ruling. If there is no evidence, satisfactory evidence that you've put out, then the Commissioner, of course, can dismiss the case or can lower the claim that you have laid.
Bogele, be very careful there. I hope ukuthi ulalele futhi ulalelisile lapho ukuthi ene isebenza kanjani le Small Claims Court. Ningayithatheli phansi ngoba kuthiwa it's a Small Claims Court. Inkantolo ebaluleke kabi kodwa kuthiwa hambani niyosifundisa ukuthi isebenza kanjani. Bakhona abantu abakhona ukuthi banisize. Asithathe ikhefu lethu ke mbukeli. Angazi noma lokugcina kodwa siyabuya khona manje emva kwaleli khefu. Bukele ngizwa ngempela kuthiwa this is our final segment, so eating a police amaseko and goes back straight to the lines. But Peter at Boxburg sekwamukela baba ohlelweni singakusiza kanjani?
Good afternoon, Msakazi. Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Hello, Bud.
Msakazi, mine is not a question per se, but it's a comment. Quite often there is this tendency of these naughty people. I deliberately call them naughty because they're the ones who are owing and they don't want to pay. There is this tendency of them pleading poverty. instead of the 20,000 rand that they are owing, and then I tell the commissioner, which means I can afford to pay 50 rand a month. Now, how do commissioners address such issues?
That's a very important question, Siyabonga kakhulu Babu Peter at Boksburg. And we went a little bit over this, Commissioner, because I was very curious. How do we answer Uput Peter?
You recall that I said the court, the small claims court even, has the power to go into the financial affairs of the person, defendant. Of the defendant. So you can, as the court, compel the defendant to bring financial documentation. Okay. And then you make a decision based on what you see in front of you. Okay. So it's not just a glib excuse that I can't afford and it's the end of it. Okay. You can still be compelled by the commissioner via a judgment, because the commissioner would have looked into the financial affairs of the defendant and then issues the judgment. Once the judgment is issued, you have no choice but to comply.
Oh, okay. So then you need to press there, but Peter, Uguti umuntu, they must never plead poverty. The commissioner melebenze umsebenzi wabo. But does every commissioner think this way then, Commissioner Uguti? Hey, if somebody says they're pleading poverty, let me compel them first, because there's no way you are driving a German car, washaisa omunye umuntu obe driver, a very small car, and you are claiming that you can only pay 50 rand back a month.
Commissioners undergo rigorous training, and these are experienced advocates and attorneys. They understand. They have been through this, so they understand all the excuses, and they would be able to pick exactly.
Commissioner, let's talk about the maximum number of cases that I, as an individual, can actually bring to the small claims court. Let's say I've got 50 people. They've been owing me for the past 10 years. But because you hear saying, yay, there's a new route, we're also going to talk about prescription while we're talking about those 50 cases from 5 years ago.
You're not a machonista, are you? No. Well, any member of the public, as I said in my introductory remarks, can go to the small claims court. There is no limit whatsoever as to the number of cases that you can bring to the small claims court. As long as it's
separate matters.
As long as it's separate matters, of course.
Of up to 20,000 rand.
Up to 20,000 rand. So if Amanga and Bako are like 10, 11 of them, you are so generous that you've been loaning them money.
No, we went out on a girls' trip.
Then go to the nearest small claims court. Okay. You will surely be assisted.
Okay. And then what is the prescription like? Is there any time frame in terms of when I actually have to bring these matters and claims to the small claims court before they prescribe?
Alicia, I appreciate that question because there's a lot of misconception. Some people can bring a case that dates 10 years back. Unfortunately, in terms of our law, a case that you bring to the court has to be less than 3 years old. If it's older than 3 years, then, to use your phrase, the case has prescribed. Ibolile. You can't do anything about it. The small claims court would not be able to assist you in that instance.
Okay. So maybe in closing, says Valage, Commissioner, because I think we've pretty much covered all the bases, right? What then would you consider as some of the greatest achievements in the 40 years of the SC's existence? Let's talk about that. Let's end on a light note.
You know, the small claims court was established by an Act of Parliament, 1984.
Yes.
Prior to that, there would be unemployed people, poor people, who have claims, valid claims against other people, against defendants, but couldn't afford lawyers. You know, there's a joke, there's an in-house joke amongst lawyers that lawyers are so expensive that they can't afford themselves in the event that they fall into trouble. So the biggest achievement is that ordinary Tom, Dick, and Harry can go to a court of law and get justice. Because
that's very important.
That's very, very important. Because to give up when you have a valid claim against any person is actually a collapse of the rule of law. You have to
We
go.
are all entitled to justice,
We are all
regardless
entitled.
of our financial background,
Exactly.
educational background.
Exactly.
Maungonile, ungonile, and you must account for it. And that was basically the purpose behind the establishment of this, the Small Claims Court.
In fact, you know, the monetary jurisdiction of the court gets raised or increased by the Minister of Justice from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
Before
it was 14,000.
It was 15,000
yeah, 15,000 rand.
Now it's 20,000 rands.
So
in
we
fact,
might be seeing 50.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And some of the need to knows, what else can you tell them, Ngalama Small Claims Court, just to allay some of those misconceptions about the fact that agunaba lawyers and umthetho, ama processes. Usually, Commissioner, when people see things, ama services that are free, funny enough, in South Africa, they think they are not efficient enough.
It's quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate because the role that is played by the Small Claims Court is a very important role in society. As I say, everyone is entitled to justice. You don't want people staying away from courts because they can't afford lawyers. So I think the misconception has to be allayed. Small Claims Court are very, very important, very, very important. They would be able to assist members of the public. I would urge members of the public to approach their nearest small claims courts in the event that they have some grievance against other people.
Commissioner, siyabonga kakhulu. Wow, what a great conversation. Loads of information to process. Ngiyathemba nawe mbukela ukuthi ulalelile lapho intently for the whole hour. Sikhuluma la no Commissioner wase Small Claims Court, Commissioner Theo Maphetho. He's also an attorney. So nizomthola lapha ya uma niyofuna usizo e-Small Claims Court. Siyabonga kakhulu babukeli nani nokuthi nisithinte namhlanje nibe ingxenye yohlelo lenu. We're going to see you next week for another live consumer affairs discussion. Igama lami ngingunonhlanhla uAlisha wakajali. Ngimthanda nonke emakhaya. Nisale kahle.